Welcome in to another episode of The Right Stuff, a Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by Empire Games, coming out of sometimes lovely, always victorious Anderson, South Carolina. I'm Yannie here with Nathan, and we've got a ton of stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best to be succinct. I've got a running gag for this episode, so I'm ready to employ it as soon as you are. So
Okay. Sounds perfect. So we've got our typical fare of talking through league games, but also we got a tournament to talk about. We had Palmetto Cup this past weekend.
Yeah, it's in the rear view. I guess we'll stave off spoilers for now. I think we can dramatically build up to the thrilling conclusion over the recap. So stay tuned for that. We'll cover the league stuff first. We have a pile of players who have departed the leagues. Our in memoriam section is quite big compared to previous weeks. And then the second half of the episode is going to be the Palmetto Cup overview. And we're probably going to have to not cover upcoming games to try to keep this under 5 hour, under the 5 hour mark. So
yeah. Well, if I'm being honest, there were not too many games that actually stood out to me this week, and I was almost tempted to pick some Snotling games. So maybe that's a sign. Yeah. We just don't talk about this week. We can talk about it next week. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got some catch-up games that happened. First one was a week one catch-up thrown all the way back. The Skaven Blight Skitter Stars is back 4-0 win over the Wretched Foul Fangs.
The Prodigal Blood Bowl player returns. And he kind of made a statement with that game, I'd say.
Yeah. If you look at it on tour play, there's a lot of action going on, just lots of random fouls being thrown.
Yeah.
But just a pretty solid 4-0 win.
Yeah, this happened in the store while I was working, and I got to stop by the game a couple of times, and I feel like every single time I stopped by the game, Coop was on the verge of knocking the ball out of Joel's hands, which is usually what happens in a game like this where you lose 4-0. Now, it's not hard to lose 4-0 versus Skaven per se. Mm-hmm. Skaven has a way of punishing mistakes that no other team really does, just because of the way the nature of gutter runners. And I talked to Joel like a little bit, and I think Joel, he's been like playing the Underworld team under like a couple of false premises, couple of like he didn't fully grasp it on a conceptual level when he sat down to play, and so I think Underworld is a team that takes some finesse to play, and you have to protect your really key pieces. You've got a lot of fodder that you use to screen off your key pieces. Now, a dedicated Blood Bowl opponent is going to do what they can to hurt those key pieces anyway. And so it's a little bit easier in practice to screen off your guys. It's like it's harder. It's easy to say just don't get your guys hit, right? But it's Blood Bowl. Stuff goes wrong.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're still a couple games behind. Still a lot of catching up that we're doing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're headed into a long weekend, right? Mm-hmm. July 4th. Is right around the corner. A bunch of people have got some time off, and from the chatter, it's looking like we might do our best to get caught up through this weekend. So,
yeah, that'll be good. It'll be nice to have a full slate of games to talk about, and not have to be tracking back through and going. So,
one of the notes, I think I made it a little bit further down the list, but we had a real River Song situation going on here where. Stuff is happening before the antecedent has occurred, so it's like it's you don't know how people really are doing in this league, other than John Jurgen just completely destroying people.
Right.
That's the only constant in the league. Who knows where else the rest of the league shakes out? So
right. Yep. We got some week 3 recap games. First one I got up here is your game against Clobbering Catastrophe.
Yeah. Okay. So all right, you ready for the bit?
Okay.
Okay, so the bit is I'm going to try to recap the league games in under 3 minutes. Okay, ready, and get your stopwatch ready. I'll give you a appropriate. I've got my stopwatch here. Okay, and go. So objectively, this was a pretty solid game of Blood Bowl, decided by a couple of rolls. subjectively, it really sucked to lose this game. On the first drive, I got a lucky casualty against a big one pretty early, and I was going to try to stall out the half, try to take a couple people off the pitch because he had Bomber. I wanted him to put up Bomber on turn 8 and then get him kicked out of the game. But Henderson made a 4-up dodge to one-dime my ball carrier and push him into the end zone and force me to score, so I lost a turn there. The weather changed to pouring rain, but he was never punished for that. He just rolled 4+ to naturally to pick up the ball without sure hands on the team. The Crazy T had his worst game since picking up the Pro skill. He only resulted in 1 casualty during the course of the game, and he triple skulled thanks to Pro at the worst time in the second half. I had a chance to tie the game up with a few turns left, but I ran out of rerolls thanks to skull both downs on my line blocks, and then I double skulled the key blitz on turn 15, making scoring impossible, giving the win to Henderson. Boom, that was actually less than a minute.
That was.
So, there you go.
Yeah. You might want to go back and listen to that at like 0.5 speed, but to get the full experience. But yeah, a very succinct recap of that game. Not mad at all.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say Henderson played pretty well, and like I said, it came down to kind of double skulls at a really wrong time. He never does double skulled anything. He didn't have like anything go disastrous for him, and I had like 2 really bad double skulls.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I hate to reduce the game down to just that, but that's kind of what it ended up being. So.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have Second Act and the Legion of Honesty, Honor, and Friendship.
Yes, this is the River Song game.
Yeah.
Because this game actually happened after our next 2 upcoming games.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you followed that listening to the podcast, but chronologically, both Yannie played the Legion and I played Halen.
Yeah.
And chronologically, we played those games prior to this game happening.
Yeah. So those teams might have been better or worse for wear than you would have expected for some of our games, but yeah, 1-1 tie from everything I saw. It looks like just a standard game.
Yeah, I played Blackworks quite a few times with Nobility back in the second season of the Empire Blood Bowl League, and it's an interesting matchup because you get to negate some of the Blackwork bonuses. Like grab doesn't really work against bodyguards, but you don't necessarily want to be like bogged down in combat with Blackworks as Nobility. It looks like Halen's armor kind of held up during the game, and you can pick off some goblins here and there with the blitzers.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're probably ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty similar from my Nobility experience. It's like not necessarily the strongest team all the time, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And the fun thing that I saw on the stat line was there was a completion by a bodyguard.
Yeah, that's not many of those happen because the bodyguards are passing 5+.
Yes, so. 5+ passing completions are pretty great to see.
Maple was taken in that game, and that's actually like a really interesting call from Nobility. I don't know if Maple is better than Grombrindle, but Maple does offer something that I think Nobility really struggles in the agility matchups, like the elf teams primarily, because the elves can just dance around wherever you're trying to set up your Maginot line of bodyguards. Maple, on the other hand, could end up with like a really sticky positional conundrum for a dodgy team. So I'd love to know what Halen's experience with Maple was with, because like I said, I think it was it's an interesting piece that is good where the matchup is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. I think the thing with I haven't gotten to play with Maple yet, but like I said, like last week I had played against it with the human team, and it was just like it's solid. Just the threat,
aerial denial.
Yeah, the threat of the once per half is present until it gets used, and then just like randomly tentacles will work. Like it's a coin flip on a lot of teams. So like, half the time you try to get away, you are not getting away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so if I were to play Nobility again, I would focus on like making a frenzy bodyguard, and I would make my offensive drives move towards the sideline, and then I would do what I can with the frenzy bodyguard to surf people and not get surfed back, right? Because you've got the stand firm. And Maple would do a lot for that. Because then you can't be like even 3 squares away from the end zone or from the sideline, because Maple can hit you, grab you, push you towards the sideline. If you're 2 squares away, then a frenzy surfs you. So yeah, I mean, Maple plus like a frenzy bodyguard could do a lot of work, I feel.
Yep. Our last week 3 game was the Soul Peak Dooms and Oops, mostly Nurglings. 2-0 win for Chase. Seems like a typical Snotling game.
Yeah, he didn't ruin the undead team. So far, I think I've experienced the worst of the Chase thrashing so far, going into the next game with 6 journeymen. In this case, undead are just kind of resilient, right? Like, you don't really enjoy punching zombies with big guys. So yeah, I mean, I think Jack got out of that game with like a bunch of SPP. He had like 5 casualties. And so that's one of those where if you're going to lose a game, if you get 14 SPP, that's a pretty good loss in my book. So.
All right. On to the week 4 games, finally. Like, hopefully in a couple weeks we won't have to do all this much.
Yeah.
But we got Little Titans Mayhem and Rag and Bone as a 1-0 win for Sean.
Yeah. See everything I just said about Undead for this game. Sean's a player that's got a bit more experience than Jack. From what I understand, Jack's played quite a bit of like Blood Bowl 3. But Sean's got way more experience IRL. And so I think that was probably the difference in this game. Plus, Juan and Chase have slightly different builds.
Yeah.
Right. Juan's using like a pump wagon. So I think Juan didn't end up with as many inducements. So I think that might have been the difference.
Yeah. Juan's also a fan of the positional Sotlings from what I've seen, which I do think that some of them are powerful, but is it more powerful than the full tailored inducement game? That's going to be.
I think once you get to I think the playoff picture is where you have to make decisions. If the Snotlings are getting into the playoffs with like a full treasury, and they can customize their lists based off of who they're playing, you know, like against elves, against some other people, you might want those positionals because they don't give you free dodges the way that the regular Snotlings do. And you don't want elves just kind of dancing through your Snotlings and scoring and getting all your dirty players out of the game. So.
Next game up, the Barbarians and the Gondolin Glory Hounds as a draw.
A scoreless second half.
Yeah.
Which is wild. The note that I had was Jim failed to gym it. I'd failed to gym it. There was hardly any gymming going on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it looked like a wild game. Both players took some, like, losses early. Jim's dice were, like thermonuclear hot. In the first couple of turns, he was just breaking armor effortlessly. He surfed Black Orc. I had said he just forgot about Frenzy, and so he has Black Orc. He had a Black Orc set up where he could just be surfed. And then Jim moves like a couple of pieces, and I'd's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, he's got Frenzy, and so surfed a dude casually to him right off the bat. You know, no skillless Black Orc, armor down. You probably just send him to the glue farm, and you know. Head on down to the used Black Orc lot and pick you up a new one. So,
yeah, interesting trend from this game was I'm pretty sure I and Jim have had like almost identical seasons, like 2 wins into 2 draws.
Yeah,
Jim went from being like far and away the highest scoring team to where he's still in the discussion, but like the past 2 weeks have just been draws.
Yeah,
not super flashy.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting to see when he kind of kicks it back on.
Yeah, and I think I think this is just a testament to the Blood Bowl League. You can end up with some really hard games one week and then really easy games in another week, right? It's hard to say, and matchup dependent too, right? It's not even an indicator of like the strength of your opponents, like how much they've played, though that certainly factors into it. But sometimes you just run into a matchup where you're just fighting for your life. So.
Yep. All right, then we have Low-Key Rat Bastards and Tryhards. This is another draw, which I think kind of not the most surprising thing to me. Just the way the two players play each other, I think it's always close between Austin and Ness.
Yeah. Well, and I think the matchup is kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not easy for both teams to take the ball from the other one. And while Dark Elves can certainly scrap better than a lot of the elf teams, Underworld is not a team. Underworld is a team that comes into a game with enough casualties that the Dark Elf player probably won't ever have like a man advantage, right? I mean, it looks like both of them were fouling relentlessly in this game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, both people left a mark on the other for the upcoming game. Unless his star player Blitzer went down, Austin had like a thrower die.
Yeah.
So,
spoiling the in memoriam section. Yeah. I mean, the big story coming out of this game though is Nessa's Witch Elf, which got a strength up.
Yeah.
So
we got a lot of strength ups in that other division there.
Yeah. So it's not something we have to worry about for 8 more weeks.
Right.
So then up next game up is Metropolitan Dumpster Rats and Taisho Charon.
Yeah, I don't think a player who's scored 2 touchdowns in a game has had to concede without penalty before, but this might be the first in the league. Mm-hmm. I do think Skaven is probably a team where that is likely to occur. You might score 2 touchdowns and then just get completely tabled.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. Barbie was actually up 2-1. Because she has mastered the quick snap touchdown. I'll say that. I'm proud of her for that. Now we just got to work on getting your team completely annihilated by frogs. So
natural enemies.
Yeah.
Rats and frogs.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of animated GIF out there of a frog eating a rat, right?
I'm sure there is something like that.
So
I vaguely remember that Animal Planet special. This was... So started off, I think it was like 3 straight 16s.
Yeah.
On injuries. One of those got apothecaried, and then there was still another 16 waiting.
Yeah.
Later in the game. So
lurking right around the corner.
Yeah. I mean, given precedent of last season, though, getting an armor down on a rat ogre is a surefire way to make a playoff run. So.
Yep. Yeah. Or even win.
Yep.
You only need 2 rats to win a game, so.
All right, then we are still waiting on the result of the Renegades of Funk and the Dead Gooners. We'll get that eventually, I'm sure. It's not like we're just missing a whole bunch of games or anything. Then we got, Title Terrors and Darn Tootin'.
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to start off by giving props to Clay for being the first player to actually injure one of John's dwarves. Up until this game, John had taken no casualties.
Yep.
Clay got 2 on him. That's pretty. I'm proud of you, Clay. Great job. It's all right. Don't feel bad that you didn't score any touchdowns. Nobody else has yet either. We'll have to be on touchdown watch. We're on weeks without a touchdown against dwarves. The placard says 4 right now.
Yep.
We'll see if that continues going up there. And so this John team is just rolling, right? It's just brutal.
Yeah. I caught a small segment of this game when Clay was trying to score in the first half.
Okay.
And Jurgen just surrounded him on the side and had gone through and just like scalpeled the ball out. It bounced. It was like he like ran someone over to get it. And as I was walking away, he like passed his turn. And I was like, as I was walking away, I was like, "You disappointed me, John. You missed a block. You missed a 2-die block over here." And apparently, him not taking that block led to the runner getting injured.
Oh,
like it got badly hurt.
Yeah,
but it's like that was like
the dodge
one block.
One. It's not the strength up one. It was the dodge one.
So it was like he's like, "Oh man."
Yep.
It's like, yep, I got punished for that. So there is some justice happening.
Yeah.
Just be aware.
It's like real life. You got to find justice where you can. So.
Yeah. All right. That clears up for that division. Next division, total bottom, we only got 3 games to talk about.
Yeah, this is actually the most we've had to talk about for a week since like week 1, right? So we're catching up.
Yeah,
we are catching up.
It's been a cascading thing where somebody will be out for a week, and then the next week somebody else is. So it's just adding up, and then there might.
I think this is the get right week.
Yeah,
that's what this is.
Okay, so we got first up Rookwood Conspiracy and Swamp People. The 1-1 draw, very uneventful game.
I was gonna say this was the opposite of a Snotling timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, I can have to work under the assumption that some solid fundamental Blood Bowl was getting played here. Mm-hmm. Both players just kind of like ground out their touchdowns, protected the ball, and if both players just do that, then you end up with a 1-1 draw, and that's just kind of like Blood Bowl. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing not anything wacky, crazy happened here. But yeah, I mean, it's just probably just solid Blood Bowl, right?
Yeah. I think it's interesting that so he's a Carla, which is not a pick we see like a ton, but it seems pretty decent into humans. Whereas like going by itself is
Now, if you got 190, the pick really should be Dribble and Drool. Mm-hmm. If you haven't ever played with Dribble and Drool, I highly recommend it. I don't know about you.
I think you do know about it.
But I highly recommend it. And yeah, I mean, you just get a strong fouling game, and Lizards don't have that naturally. You got to build that into the team. You can make like a sneaky get skink, but Dribble and Drool both come ready to go with a bag of tricks that's Lizardmen normally don't get, and Dribble will quickly turn the tide of a game with a couple of lucky fouls. You can get way ahead, and when he gets kicked out, it won't matter because you've taken like 3 strategic pieces off the board. So and then the cage dive stab from Drool goes a long way too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you haven't ever played with Dribble and Drool and you're playing one of these Lizardmen teams, you got a chance to take them, I would recommend it. Somebody like Carla's stat line looks really, really tempting. The 4 strength, block, dodge, jump up, dauntless. A lot of that looks really good. And Carla herself is a very competent piece, but Dribble and Drool do things for the team that you don't get otherwise.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to think about with inducements is like, what can I get access to that I not normally have? Yeah,
exactly. So a 4 strength block piece, she's got better agility, and she's got dodge, but that's not really any different than like the Sauruses that are on the team, right? That's just, you now have a 7th piece, and you don't really want to score a touchdown with her in a league because you want that SPP on one of your players.
Right.
So Dribble and Drool, on the other hand, you don't want to foul with your own players on Lizardmen because your guys are pretty valuable. And so if so-and-so gets kicked out, then whatever. They got kicked out. If they get killed, whatever. They got it was a star player that got killed, not one of your skinks. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. All right. Next game up, I'm going to subject myself to the same challenge that Nathan did. I'm going to have my stopwatch going. But I'm going to try to aim for this to be a 2-minute drill.
Okay.
And not talk like an auctioneer. So my game was against Black Orcs, the Legion. It was a 4-0 win. So going in, he had the inducement game going. He took Bomber, Nabla, and a bribe. And I received the ball. He put Bomber out. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try to score, make him use the bribe. Then Bomber casualtied a linewoman on the first turn, and I saw red. So basically from there, I was like, anything that I do to this Black Orc team is justified. So I was able to score on turn 2. He used a bribe. Kick off to him. He puts Bomber and Nawa on the field. His first turn, his first hits are not like super impactful. I kind of like run around, try to position, because I'm like, I'll try to like hit the ball out and run. He knocks over a linewoman with his first hit on turn 3, and then runs a goblin over, which happened to be his goblin with diving tackle, which was a piece I was kind of wary of, just for a whole bunch of dodging. Kind of a scary piece. But he runs over, fouls, rolls doubles. He goes to argue, rolls a 1. At which point I am like, okay, well, if I score, it's basically like I'm going up 2 players because Bomber and Nobler are sent off after that point. So aggressively play for the ball and knock it, hit him. Bomber and Nobler are out for the rest of the game at that point. And from there, it was just, I was just trying to make plays for the ball. Like, my first couple of games, SPP-wise, weren't super crazy. So I was like, I'm not looking to play tournament games. I want a league game. So cranking up that SPP. Killed a goblin along the way. Sorry about it, maybe. But that's what you get for taking secret weapons.
Yeah.
Like, if you bring secret weapons to the table, any actions that happen in a game are justified against you.
Yeah.
And that's my recap at a minute 56.
Yeah, the only thing that stops a bad actor with a secret weapon is a good actor with a secret weapon.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going for the recap challenge in my 3-0 win against the second act, and away we go. So Halen had re-rolled his team, and he's coming into the game with a fresh Nobility squad. Nobility has an interesting matchup in the Khorne, since the Retainers are actually really great in that matchup, but the Khorne Gores are also equally great, and because they can move around the bodyguards. I think Halen probably should have actually scored a touchdown on turn 3, but he failed to go for it to get into the end zone, and he coughed up the ball. I had a Khorne Gore run over there, pick up the ball, and run 25 squares uninterrupted, and score and I scored right before the half. And so I get the ball back after the break, and I just kind of beat on his team some more. I scored pretty fast there. We set up for his kickoff to see if he can, get a touchdown. I roll blitz, and so he gets a little bit of revenge because he does put a strength down on one of my Khorne Gores, but I do score a defensive touchdown to go up 3-0. The Crazy Teeth had a really strong makeup game against Halen after bungling it against the Orcs. The Crazy Teeth casualtied both the White Dwarf and Halen's Ogre during the game, and then probably was responsible for like another handful of KOs as well. And so at that point, I had a disgusting number advantage, and so I was able to just kind of translate that into a win. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Excellent timing. Yeah, that is all the games we have to talk about this week. So we will just take a quick little break and then come back and talk some Palmetto Cup action. We're back, and you thought we were going to talk about Palmetto Cup, but
we got a lot of dead people to talk about.
Yeah, we can't let the dead go without being named, or they will haunt us forever.
Yeah,
specifically our dice. So we got our in memoriam section this week, starting off with a player you killed, Funny Broken Bones.
Yeah, the Bloodspawn splattered this dude, as the Bloodspawn is wont to do. So,
yeah, we had a journeyman Snotling lineman for the Little Titans of Mayhem. Don't mourn.
Don't cry for him
ever.
No, don't cry.
We had Cookies, lineman from the Legion of Honesty, Honor, and Friendship. This is the one I killed.
Yeah, his brother Kisses also died. That's the one with diving tackle.
Yeah. Kisses should have gotten sent off in that game too, apparently.
He got sent off to the great beyond.
Yeah. Then we've got a pile of rat bodies to talk about. For the Metropolitan Dumpster Rats, we lost the Rat King, Fievel, and Jenner.
Yeah. A bad week for Skaven throwers.
Yes. And also for the Loki Rat Bastards, Alligator Loki, who was a thrower.
Yeah. So in 2 weeks, we've had 3 Skaven throwers die.
Yeah.
So.
And the 2 this week accounted for over a quarter of the completions in the league to this point.
Just eradicated.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I think the thing is like with a Blood Bowl league, there's like peaks and valleys of various stats that are going on, right? And I think this is like a great example of how like. Yeah, you can have a game where you score 24 SPP, but you can also have a game where maybe you lose 20 SPP because you had like a really experienced player die.
Yeah. So being aware of that. I mean, luckily for those players, I think as far as throwers out of the kit, Skaven are one of the best.
Skaven have a really good thrower.
So, yes. May you rebuild those skills quickly. And hopefully...
And lose them again.
yeah, maybe like right before the playoffs. Maybe?
I don't cry for Snotlings. I don't cry for Skaven throwers or gutter runners.
Yeah,
I respect the Skaven blitzer. So I'll say it's a shame when one of them gets hurt.
What about 3 of them?
3 Skaven blitzers? I think that's probably fair. So. I respect the first one. I don't respect the second and third one.
Fair. Yeah, that's our in memoriam section this week. And with that, all buried and flowers
set the
placed.
rest.
Yeah, we can talk Palmetto Cup now.
Yeah.
So, do you want to run through your games?
Yeah, so I think I can get through that. My first round is pretty fast. So we'll hit the timer on the recap for this one. Jim and I played against twin stunty teams. Ogres and Goblins, piloted by a couple of coaches from the Upstate League, Jared and Chris. Glad to see them come down and play in the tournament. I don't like playing Vampires and Strength 5 teams since I don't have Strip Ball on my list, and I had Jim bring Undead so I could feed his Undead team to the Bashy teams, and I could go fight the Finesse teams. The Goblin game was filled with hijinks, and I think I got a bit of help early in the game when the Looney chainsawed himself on a kickback. And got taken out of the game. And to keep it brief, my team got beat up by Goblin tricks, but the Vampires themselves were relatively secure and are very good at taking the ball from stunty players and then running the other way. And so I won the game 2-0. Jim handled business on his end, pushing around some ogres, and won his game as well. I think 2-0.
Yeah, so our round 1, we were playing against the quote-unquote ringer team. I guess spoilers, I did not get to play a single new person this year. It was just all Empire League games. And most people I play every season. So, but round 1 we were playing against Jennings and Ide. Like we talked about last week, Wayne was on Wood Elves, I was on Dark Elves. So for this first round matchup, they decided to put Jennings against Wayne, and then I was playing Ide. I was playing Black Orcs, and he had Thark, which is a big piece that I was able to mostly corral in the first half. I elected to receive, did the typical run the clock out, score late, not giving him a chance to equalize. And then in the second half, I was able to mostly keep stuff contained, and then a Witch Elf got casualtied. The next turn, I go to make a play on the ball, and my goal here was to knock the ball loose, have it carom among all the different Black Orcs, fall out. I had a couple players who had not yet activated who could go grab it and then just run away from everything. And I had based the Thark into a place where if he wanted to try to get to the ball carrier, assuming it bounced out, he'd have to make a bunch of dodges. And the first dodge with the Thark is kind of free with break tackle, but subsequent ones are going to be a challenge. So I go to blitz the ball carrier with the Witch Elf, and I knock it down on the first hit, and then a ball bounces to the Witch Elf, which is the one place I did not want to go. She catches on a 6. So I have to dodge her back out and try to get away, and I can't get far enough away from Hthark to where I can keep the hit from happening. And Hthark runs over, hits her with Juggernaut, and knocks her out, casualties her. So I lost both of my Witch Elves on back-to-back turns. Up to that point, we were fairly even, and then I couldn't get the ball back out, so ended up a draw. Wayne won his game, so we got a win for the round. But we were technically the lowest of the wins because some people were just putting absolute beatings on their opponents.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We went to lunch and talked about it, and we were pretty sure we were going to end up playing Will and Ness coming back from lunch because I think Will won his game 4-0 or something like that, and then Ness won 2-0. Yep. And so Jim and I were well, we've got, a 4-0 win over our combined opponents, so provided other people, maybe somebody could have won more than us, but it's likely that we'll end up playing that game. So
those high-scoring Tomb Kings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll talk about it in a bit. So, I wonder if I can blast through this one in 3 minutes to keep it relatively short for round 2. Mm-hmm. Here we go. I'm going to challenge myself. I don't know if I can keep it under 3 minutes, but we'll see. All right, so we got paired up against Will and Ness, who were playing Ogres and Team Kings. We got the option to pick matchups, so I decided to face my fears and let them pass through me, and I went up against Ness and his Tomb Kings. Jim was fighting for his life against Will, but managed to pull out a tie despite his team taking the beating. My dice were pretty terrible against Ness, and my first armor break, for instance, was on turn 15 of the game. The dice that Ness rolled against me that had nothing to do with the ball were lightning hot, but he did actually fail to pick up the ball 3 times in a row at the beginning of the game. On turn 2, I snaked a dodge with a vampire and thought I had lost the game right there. I did manage to knock the ball loose on turn 4, scoop it up with a runner, and score to go up 1-0. I managed to force Ness to roll a bunch of dice to try to score with a failed handoff before the half, so I kept him out of the end zone. I opted to draw Ness into my backfield on my next offensive possession since I had a speed advantage with the runners. I gave him just a blitz 2 turns in a row, but his blitzes just resulted in removing my players anyway. And so I decided to make a play and move my thrower up to punt the ball across midfield. And I had a choice between going for 10 or trying to go the full 13 to throw it all the way back there. If I went for 10, Ness had a Tomb Guardian that could move over to where near the ball was, which I wasn't thrilled about. If I throw the ball the full 13, then it's a foot race between one of my runners and like his whole team. The fastest part of his teams were in my backfield, trying to go after my ball carrier. And so my first throw is a 1. My reroll is a 2. And so the ball is wildly inaccurate, and it just goes 2 spaces away from my thrower, which lets Luther just go pick it up, and I just concede the touchdown. I just move all my players away so that they can stop getting hit. So Ness runs it in and scores, and we're tied 1-1. And so I have to set up like a fast little scoring threat if I can, which I managed to do. And so to kind of get a little bit succinct here, I managed to spread out his defense enough to force it down to just a handful of rolls, which I get and score to go up 2-1, and I managed to win that game. Exercised a couple of demons while doing that, so I think. So there you go. That was my round 2.
What was the gym result?
Tie.
Tie? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
1-1 tie. He and Will beat the Jim casually. I think Jim took 2 ogres off the field, but I think Jim lost both of his mummies in that game at various points, and so both players were just like losing players all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before I get into my round 2 recap, I want to just take a second. There are a couple things that happened that led to things in the game. One was after his first round, I was talking with strategy a little bit with Wayne. He was like, I think when you're playing Dark Elves, just you're better, since you can score with less players, you're an elf team, it's better to kick first to try to defend, because if you can successfully defend, your odds are higher of defending with a full roster. And also, if you just randomly strip the ball out and score, that's the thing you can do. So, and then the other thing was, over the course of the week, debating roster stuff, I had played around with a runner or an assassin, and in the end decided to just go with linemen outside of the 4 blitzers and the 2 witch elves, just 5 linemen. So I just wanted the armor 9 just to keep stuff a little bit more resilient. So this next round we were playing against Sean and Juan, and I think this was technically a pair down game, since we were the lowest of the winning teams at that point. So we kick off. Wayne's playing against Sean. I'm playing against Juan, and they pick the games. So we choose kickoffs. I like to kick 2-1, and he has taken gnomes with Morg. So I'm like, okay, just accepting the fate of Morg could just go crazy here and blow up my team. So I set linemen up on the line, and the other key part of Juan's team is he has no foxes. So he has some illusionists that are kind of like running around. He has an illusionist with leader. He has a couple dodge beastmasters, and the trees have brawler. So that's all concessions you have to make to get more on the team.
Yeah.
And he also couldn't take a second star because Sean was playing with Wilhelm.
Yeah.
So I set up my line. I'm just like embracing the fact that I'm just possibly going to lose 3 linemen on the first turn.
The 3 mighty blow hits. Yeah.
So he goes with his 3 mighty hits. My armor is 9. His first hit with the tree knocks down a player. He rolls a 7 to break armor. The next one is with the other tree, knocks down a player, rolls a 7 with mighty blow +1. Morg blocks down, rolls a 6. So I successfully dodged the mighty blow, and that I think was kind of the story of the game. Was just like it was a dicing.
Yeah.
Where I think the illusionists both took themselves out. Like one failed a push, fell over,
Exploded.
died.
Yeah.
Early in the game, like in the backfield trying to get the ball. I was kind of running around. I had it spaced out where my defense was basically like, I'm going to, if you want to try to score, you're going to have to dodge out and push twice, was kind of what I was leaning towards. And on turn 16, Juan is like caged up. He's like, I need to try to score this turn. So he dodges out the illusionist and he fails the first rush. Falls over, player explodes. Ball bounces into the end zone. Previously, I had run a witch elf away from the action to be like 7 squares away from the end zone, and Juan was like, "Oh, you're just trying to get that player out of the action." I was like, "No, I'm trying to score." So I have to push Morg once. I get 2 dice on Morg, so I'm like, I'm going to take this hit. I have a reroll, so I end up pushing him away. A blitzer dodges out, goes and picks up the ball, and throws a pass 9 squares to a lineman. I spike the 6 on the pass. He catches it on a 2, walks up, hands it to the witch elf, and then the witch elf just runs it in and scores on turn 8. So going into the half up on the defensive drive was like better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then the second half was basically just like running out of gnomes, which is a thing that's going to happen with that team. Like I've been playing a lot of gnomes recently. It's just
the gnome lineman is a solid piece, but it is disposable.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think ended up really affecting the game too was just like knowing the gnome matchup. I was like specifically headhunting the linemen. Yeah. Because
they're the ones that can be thrown.
Yeah, they're lower armor and they can also be thrown. So like I had gotten the blitzer away, like Morg was out of the picture. The trees are not ever getting to him.
Yeah,
and
the trees are particularly bad against elves, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he just had no one left to throw at the end of the game. There was like a Beastmaster next to him. It's like, yeah, well, Beastmasters can't get thrown. So it was a 2-0 win. And I believe Wayne also won his game, I believe against Sean.
I think so.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was very much just like I'm going to let that happen. After that game, I just like walked away. Felt very vindicated for the Duluth tournament finals. So I got my revenge and I was like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah. I think to build drama, I think we cover your game against Jim first for round 3. And then I'll go through the Wayne game.
Yeah, so this game, I haven't gotten to play Jim. It feels like in like a year, even though we're both in the league. We just end up in the different divisions a bunch. So we sit down, and he starts off with the ball, and I'm like, okay, that's like fine with me. I'm able to go through and just get pretty lucky on, I think, like 2 out of my first 3 blitzes are knockouts. Yeah. So like I'm peeling players off at like an accelerated rate. I think the one thing Jim did that he recognized as kind of a mistake was he had an early blitz with his white with tackle, and he gets around, he doesn't knock my player over, and then I knock it down and basically cage it up between some linemen. And that player basically stays on the ground for the rest of it because he doesn't want to stand up. He's very close to the sideline.
He can get surfed easily by a witch elf.
Yeah, very easy potential for him to get surfed because I can like throw a block with a lineman and kind of pinball him over, and then a witch elf just comes through and finishes the job. So, this game is like super tense. First half is scoreless, like able to prevent the score. I'm like, okay, this feels good. Second half, I get the ball, score, and I'm kind of driving. I get bad habits on the prayers. So a couple players get loner. Doesn't really ever come up, but I think it also disincentivizes you from making plays with those players, and one of them was a white. So that did, I think, have some impact. I score on turn 6.
So he's got 3.
Yeah, I score on turn 6 because I can't get around to tie up the tackle piece. I think realistically I probably would have been fine just letting, if he hits me and then the ball just like kind of like bounces towards the end zone, like I have a shot at picking it up on like a 3 and I had re-rolls, I probably would have been fine if I just waited an extra turn. But I was like, okay, I need to like at least get a score here to try to defend. And then the last 3 turns were basically perfect for what Jim needed, so he's able to get through. I miss a tying up one ghoul, because there were 3 of them at this point, and I miss tying one up, and that one ends up being able to get the handoff and like run up into scoring position. And then I think on turn 7 he has like 3 straight removals where it's like knockout, stun, or something like that. So it's like I just like have, is there like a bunch of players that were standing in position to prevent something
They're now gone,
and I can't really have enough to defend. So that game turned into a draw. So that at that point I was like, okay, well, there was a point in the middle of the game where like, okay, this game looked like it was going to be a win, and the other game looked like it was going to be a draw, and now this game became a draw. So now it's all depending on what is happening on the other table.
Yeah. All right, so I don't know that I can get this recap in 3 minutes. I'm gonna do my best. So here we go. All right, so the round was a great game for like a neutral observer, but it was extremely nerve-wracking to actually play. Wayne and I both got really unlucky at different points in the game. The key sequence in the game was where he cage dove with the strip ball war dancer, popped the ball loose, caught it on a 6, made a 4+ dodge, and then a go for it and a 3+ dodge, and then a go for it and another dodge. And he failed a bunch of those rolls, but he had to use his team re-rolls to get through that. And so I am set up to have like a ton of blocks against Wood Elves, and I can easily throw 1 or 2 blocks, set up a Hypno Gaze against the War Dancer, and then blitz it with one of the other block vampires to try to knock it down. But I can also take 2 thralls and surf one of his catchers right there. And since the catchers are block dodge, it would feel really good to just get that piece off the table. So the first block roll with the thrall is double skulls, and I re-roll into double skulls. So I don't even get to complete an action there. And so Wayne just gets to easily score from there. And so I set up with 3 turns to score, but the kickoff is a timeout. So now I have 2 turns to score. So I set up both runners to get into scoring position. Wayne blitzes one of the runners and then piles a bunch of elves onto the other runner. I still have a pretty reliable touchdown mapped out after I take the turn. But it's going to end up being a whole bunch of like 2+ rerolls with 1 3+ reroll mixed in there. The first reroll I have to make is like a 2-up to make a go for it, so that my pass is a 2-up with a reroll. And I snake that, so I am down 1-0 at the half. Wayne's getting the ball back. The kickoff is perfect defense, so I'm able to actually mess up his line hits by basing a bunch of 4-strength vamps against elves on the line. And then this also lets me put a bunch of pressure on his backfield, force him to make kind of like a less careful passing play than he would really want to. He gets a War Dancer with the ball into my backfield. I Hypno Gaze it, knock it over. The ball scatters into the hands of one of my vampires. I think the War Dancer is even stunned at this point. And so I am able to stretch the field, get the ball into the hands of a runner, and run the other way from the rest of his team. And so I score, we're tied, so Wayne's getting the ball back. The kick is almost a perfect kick. It's 2 spaces away from the end zone, but the stupid weather changes and blows it out of bounds. It was the opposite side from the War Dancers, and so the thrower's going to have to run over there and make like a long pass if he was even going to throw that turn. And so the ball's just in the hands of the War Dancer. He runs that War Dancer 8 straight ahead. He sets up a block on a thrall, runs over there, rolls double skulls, re-rolls into double skulls, and his guy falls over. So he's got a War Dancer by himself in my backfield. I run over there, hypno-gaze it, knock it over. I don't stun it, and the ball comes loose, doesn't land in the hands of either of the 4-strength amps. I'm going to move a runner over there, fail the bloodlust, and I'm forced to move it elsewhere. And if that runner hadn't bloodlusted, it would have been like in a primo screen area. I don't bloodlust with the next runner. I managed to run over there and pick up the ball, but he's able to sneak a guy into my backfield. I think the mistake that I make here is not fouling the War Dancer, because it was the strip ball one, it's on the ground. And so it's very likely to take the ball from my runner. And just depending on where the ball goes, he might just be able to score. And so that's what happens. He gets a 2-die block on that runner, knocks the ball loose. The ball scatters into the end zone even, and he just runs over there and picks it up and scores. So he's up 2-1. I go to set up my offense, but time gets called before I'm able to complete. Well, it gets called during Wayne's turn 16. He had like a hit on the ball carrier, but I don't get to take my last turn to know if I can score on that turn or not. So Wayne wins the game 2-1, wins Palmetto Cup from there. So
yeah, the wild.
That was a 4-15, but yeah, that game was wild.
Yep.
So
yeah, I was talking to Jim a little bit after like the match was over, and he's like, we basically had like identical things, like a win and then 2
for
draws.
the previous year. Yeah.
So it's like it was interesting. So it was like a super fun tournament. Shout out to all the individual award winners as well.
Yeah, there were. I'm glad a bunch of people came from out of town to it. There were a couple of the Atlanta crew. There were a couple from North Carolina. The Greenville, still relatively local, but I'm glad they came down for the tournament as well. So
yeah, super fun time. Looking forward to next year now.
Yeah,
having a title to defend. So.
It's not easy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that is.
I think that's a wrap for this week. We would take a look at the next week's games, but I think this will keep it at under an hour here. If we just call it here. So.
Yeah, and you know what? If you want to hear about next week's games, just tune in next week. Make sure you're following that. Obviously, you can follow us wherever you're listening to this. Give us some love, show us some reviews. 5-star, follow, like, subscribe, whatever it is, wherever you're listening. We appreciate all of it, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.